Greetings, friends. My name is Trickster. Let's begin our stories.
I checked into my Airbnb late at night, after a long day of traveling. The host had given me instructions to let myself in, and I stumbled my way through the dark house, looking for the room I had rented. As I made my way up the creaky stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I turned around to see if anyone was following me. But the hallway was empty. Finally, I found my room and quickly locked the door behind me. I collapsed onto the bed, exhausted, and tried to push the feeling of unease out of my mind. But as I drifted off to sleep, I heard something. It was a faint scratching sound, coming from the closet. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just an old house settling. But the scratching continued, growing louder and more frantic. I got out of bed and cautiously approached the closet. When I opened the door, I was greeted by a musty smell and darkness. I reached for the light switch, but it wouldn't turn on. As I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight, I heard something move in the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I shined the light around the closet. That's when I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes staring back at me. I couldn't make out what the creature was, but it was definitely alive. I slammed the closet door shut and ran out of the room, grabbing my bags and heading for the front door. But as I reached for the doorknob, it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, but no one came. The scratching in the closet grew louder and more insistent, and I knew I had to do something. I grabbed a lamp and threw it at the door, shattering the glass. With a surge of adrenaline, I charged through the broken door and out into the night. I never looked back as I ran down the street, praying that I would make it to safety. And as I put distance between myself and that creepy Airbnb, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors were hidden within its walls. I had planned a week-long vacation to a quiet seaside town, and had found the perfect Airbnb. The apartment was spacious and had a breathtaking view of the ocean. The owner, a friendly middle-aged woman, had left a note on the table welcoming me and wishing me a pleasant stay. At first, everything seemed fine. But as the days went by, strange things began to happen. The TV would turn on by itself, and the curtains would move even though there was no wind. I could hear footsteps in the hallway, but when I opened the door, no one was there. One night, I woke up to find a dark figure standing at the foot of my bed. It didn't move or say anything, but I could feel its malevolent presence. I was paralyzed with fear, and I couldn't even scream. The next day, I tried to contact the owner, but she never answered. I was stuck in the apartment, and the strange occurrences only got worse. The faucets turned on and off by themselves, and the water would sometimes run blood red. I found strange symbols etched into the walls, and every night I could hear whispers in the darkness. I tried to leave, but the doors were locked from the outside. I was trapped, alone with whatever was haunting me. As the days passed, I became more and more desperate. I would scream and bang on the walls, hoping someone would hear me, but no one ever came. One night, I woke up to find the dark figure standing next to me, its eyes glowing red. I knew then that I was in grave danger. I managed to escape the next day by jumping out of the window and running to the nearest town. When I went to the police, they told me that the apartment had been abandoned for years, and that no one had lived there in decades. To this day, I don't know what I experienced during my stay at that Airbnb, but I know that it was the most terrifying week of my life. And I'll never forget the feeling of pure dread that consumed me during those nights by the sea. I had been looking forward to my weekend getaway for weeks. I had found the perfect little cottage on Airbnb, nestled deep in the woods, far away from the hustle and bustle of city life. The pictures looked idyllic, and the reviews were glowing. So I eagerly booked the place for a 2-night stay. As soon as I arrived, however, things started to feel off. The cottage was definitely rustic, with creaky wooden floors and a musty smell that suggested it hadn't been aired out in a while. But that wasn't what was bothering me. It was something else, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake. The first night was uneventful, if a bit uncomfortable. The bed was lumpy, and every time I shifted, the springs would groan and protest. But I managed to drift off eventually, and slept deeply, exhausted from the long drive. It was the second night that things started to get really scary. I woke up in the middle of the night, disoriented and confused. At first, I thought it was just the unfamiliar surroundings. But then I noticed something else. There was a faint sound, like someone whispering just out of earshot. I sat up in bed, listening intentionally. The whispering grew louder, and I could just make out individual words. It was a woman's voice, and she was saying something over and over again. I strained to hear, but the words were muffled and garbled, as if the speaker was gagged. I was terrified now, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached for my phone, but the battery was dead. I fumbled for the flashlight on the bedside table, but it was gone. The whispering grew louder still, and now I could hear other sounds as well. Footsteps, coming closer and closer. I was frozen with fear, unable to move or speak. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the whispering stopped. The footsteps receded, and I was left alone in the dark, my heart still racing. The next morning, I packed up my things and left the cottage, cutting my trip short. I never reported what had happened to Airbnb or the police. But for some reason, I still think that these were not just sound hallucinations. And something sinister and it still remains in that house.